Here is a summary of the key developments from day 81 of the war involving Iran. US and Iran diplomatic maneuvers. Trump delays attack. US President Donald Trump postponed a planned military strike on Iran, following requests from Gulf allies, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Trump cited very positive development in behind-the-scenes negotiations aimed at keeping Iran without nuclear weapons. Tehran's stance. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian defended participating in the talks but firmly stated that dialogue does not mean surrender. Other Iranian officials warned the US against strategic miscalculations, declaring their armed forces are highly prepared to respond to aggression. Mediation. Pakistan is playing a central role in indirect negotiations between Washington and Tehran, with backing from Qatar. The enrichment hurdle. Analysts note that Trump's demand for zero uranium enrichment by Iran is a major sticking point, described by some as a poison pill, blocking a definitive deal. Military and waterway controls. Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC announced it may begin requiring permits for all fiber optic cables passing through the Strait of Hormuz, tightening its control over the vital waterway. Border clashes. The IRGC reported striking US and Israel-linked groups in Iran's Kurdistan province, claiming to have intercepted a large shipment of American weapons being smuggled from northern Iraq. US domestic and economic pressures. Political strain. The ongoing conflict is presenting political challenges for President Trump as American voters face rising living costs. Analysts suggest public dissatisfaction could negatively impact Republicans in the upcoming November midterm elections. Oil sanctions waiver. To alleviate surging global energy prices, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced a temporary 30-day sanctions waiver extension for Russian oil cargoes currently stranded at sea. Regional developments. Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, and West Bank. Lebanon death toll. The Lebanese Ministry of Public Health reported that Israeli strikes have killed 3,020 people and wounded 9,273 since March 2, despite a US-brokered extension of a ceasefire. In retaliation, Hezbollah launched a drone attack targeting Israeli troops in southern Lebanon. Gaza aid intercepted. Organizers of the global Sumud flotilla reported that Israeli forces intercepted the aid vessel Perseverance in international waters and detained its crew. Around 30 vessels remain en route to Gaza, drawing international condemnation from Malaysia, Qatar, and Turkey. Iraq and West Bank activity. Iraqi forces launched sweep operations in western deserts, following unconfirmed reports of covert Israeli military sites. Meanwhile, Israeli forces conducted raids and used toxic gas canisters during confrontations in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Here is a summary of the latest developments regarding the conflict, based on the provided report. Trump postpones strike amid direct negotiations. The delay. US President Donald Trump claimed he postponed a military strike scheduled against Iran after being urged by the leaders of Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia to allow space for serious negotiations. The new proposal. Regional officials report that Iran has introduced a new proposal to end the war. This reportedly includes a long-term suspension of its nuclear program, transferring its highly enriched uranium to Russia, and a phased reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Sanctions waiver claim. Iranian state media reported that the US agreed to waive sanctions on Iranian oil exports during the negotiation period, though this has not been independently verified. Skepticism remains. Pakistani mediators warn that both sides keep changing their goalposts, and Trump is still scheduled to meet with national security advisors to discuss military options if talks collapse. Escalation and waterway tension. Strait of Hormuz controls. The IRGC threatened to impose permit requirements on internet cables passing through the Strait of Hormuz and hinted at charging tolls on shipping, a move Washington has rejected. Drone warfare. Despite a relative slowdown in major airstrikes, Iranian drones targeting Gulf nations hosting US military bases caused a fire at a nuclear power plant in the UAE, while Saudi Arabia reported intercepting 3 drones. Political and economic fallout. US domestic pressure. The conflict and its subsequent toll on global fuel prices are creating significant anxiety within the White House ahead of the November midterm elections. Voters are prioritizing the cost of living over foreign conflicts, threatening Republican control of Congress. Domestic crackdown in Iran. Facing a massive economic crisis and soaring inflation, the Iranian regime has aggressively cracked down on dissent. Human rights monitors document over 4,000 war-related arrests and at least 26 executions of political prisoners since the war began on February 28. Casualties. Human rights groups estimate at least 3,636 fatalities inside Iran, including 1,701 civilians, resulting from U.S.-Israeli attacks. Regional theaters. Lebanon. Truce strained. Despite a U.S.-backed 45-day ceasefire extension between Lebanon and Israel being put into effect, violence persists. Israel launched new airstrikes in southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah announced fresh retaliatory attacks against Israeli forces.